Take Idyllwild at a base, sprinkle on a lot of talent, and multiply by American Idol. I do have my guest, Casey Abrams, performing at VIX Las Vegas, March 1st and 2nd at 7:30 and 8:45. For more information on the show, go to VixLasVegas.com. For everything about Casey Abrams, go to CaseyBasey.com, and you can follow him on Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. And Casey, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. What a great intro. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So what is it about you and jazz?
I think that it's free and you get to do what you want, basically. That's the best part. Jazz there's some plot points there, but most of all, it's, if there's something that says C major, you can do whatever you want that really fits within. You can, add 2, you can add a 7, major 7. You can do a sharp 11. You could voice it, do, 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 or you can go boo, do, do. You can do anything you want. And that's what I like about it. It's just literally just giving just a plot, not the whole story. And then you can solo over it. And that's what I like about improvising. You can improvise through life as well.
So you have to assume, of course, that you know how to play a bass before you can do all that other stuff.
No, you can scat sing too.
That's true.
Yeah.
So you grew up, well, you grew up in a couple of different places, but one of the most important parts is I mentioned it in the opening, the Idyllwild influence, as I call it. And your association with a professional bassist there, Hawkins, right?
Marshall Hawkins, yes.
Marshall Hawkins.
I just drove up here, actually. Yeah, I grew up here a long time ago. We came here when I was about 10 years old in 2000, I think about 2000. And then I just went to school for a little bit, and then I went to Idyllwild Arts, the art school. It's a boarding school, but I was a day student, so I could drive in and out. But yeah, I learned from Marshall Hawkins. I was blessed enough to work with him, who's worked with Miles Davis and Herbie Hancock and Shirley Horn and all these amazing characters. And I'm back here right now. I actually just drove up because I'm doing a Black History Month celebration that Marshall Hawkins is putting on, and I'm playing tomorrow. So you keep it full circle. And Marshall Hawkins was actually at one of the time that I did jazz on the show. He came down and watched me in the audience. It was amazing.
I bet that is coming full circle. And another close connection in one sense, although I don't know you, but your dad's name is the same as me.
Right. Yeah.
So we have a little bit of a connection there. So
Yeah,
Idyllwild obviously is a special place for you. I guess your folks still live there?
Yes, they do. Yeah. They've been when I moved out to Hollywood, they stayed there for about 3 years, and then they moved from Mexico to Portland to Seattle to Arizona. But then the last couple of years they've been here.
So the Traveling Abrams show.
Exactly. Yeah, they're nomads.
Yeah, exactly. I almost wanted to use the term hippies, but I don't think it would necessarily be
that's them. They're that.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good. Yeah, because I'm thinking in terms of generationally that it would work out in that way. So when did you know that you wanted to finally pursue jazz and bass more than jazz? Just learning the bass, because you had exposure to other instruments as well. So what was it about the bass that attracted you to it?
Well, I first thought about the bass just because it's easier than the electric guitar. You're only playing one note. And how I really got into it, I remember, Queen and AC/DC, when I'd play the electric bass, I started off on the electric bass. And I realized it's like every band needs a bass instrument. It's like nobody really, because I was like, oh, I see 3 guitars, but it's actually 2 guitars and a bass,
Mm-hmm.
And just that tone where it's like, oh, that's why I feel this really great bowl of jelly energy. It's like the jelly's the music, the bowl is the bass. It's like, oh, that's why I feel like that's what a subwoofer is. That's what that frequency is that I love, that rumbles you. It's bass. So it started off with that, and I started to play bass in orchestra in middle school, but it was just the electric bass. And then when I got to jazz school, Marshall was like, hey, that's cool and all, but check this out. And he showed me the upright bass. And from there, I was like, oh, this is amazing, because I don't even have to plug this in. It's just here's the frequency, and it's just playing against. It's literally like dancing with a partner. You're playing your part. That You play some strings and they feed you energy back. It's amazing.
It's almost part of your body after a while, I would think.
Exactly. Yeah. People are like, how do you carry that thing? It's like, well, I'm just carrying my baby around, you know? It just feels like it.
I always wonder though, the poor bass player when you have to fly and you have to, what do you do with the bass? Do you carry on and buy another ticket for it, or do you have to store it with the airline and take the chance that it might get lost or damaged?
Well, if I'm, I used to just kind of put it in the writer. I would just say, hey, rent a bass for me, please. But I now have a travel bass, and that goes with me. And there's certain parts of it I can take off that's less than 50 pounds. So technically, it gets away with going on the airplane. And so it comes in a very hard case, less than 50 pounds, and it goes underneath, and it's fine.
I always wondered about that. I know that it's not necessarily apropos of what we're talking about in general, but just the fact that there are musicians that obviously for example, a trumpet player has a favorite trumpet and carries that trumpet with them. They don't rent the trumpet at the new venue, but in your case, you mentioned requesting in some cases with a writer that they rent a bass for you. So now you have this travel bass. So does that become your more personal bass because you're on the road with it more?
I take it everywhere. I actually just did a show at Hotel Cafe in LA for my birthday, and it was yeah. I use that bass rather than the bigger bass, because it just feels, I don't know, I feel it more,
Right. Were your parents surprised by your decision to play professionally and with the bass as opposed to other instruments, or going in a whole other direction?
I don't think so. No, I think they thought it was really cool that I was doing something different, And when I first did American Idol, I was I was just I discovered it with my mom, and she was watching the ninth season with Adam Lambert and all those guys, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. Or no, sorry, we were watching the eighth season, this rewind thing with Adam Lambert, and then the ninth season with Lita Wise, who won it. And I was just like, I want to get on that show, and maybe I'll bring the bass, that'll stand out. And she's like, I think you could do it. So and then, I just brought it on, and because I had actually sat in, I wanted to hire someone from the music department at my high school. I was doing Why Don't You Do Right, the song with Roger Rabbit, Jessica Rabbit song. And I wanted to get one of the people who was in the theater department to sing the song, but then she had a theater thing, and they were kind of strict. They're like, oh, sorry, you can't go with those jazz majors. So I just decided to sing it and play the bass at the same time. And I orchestrated a whole horn section to it. So then from there on, I was like, well, I can sing and play at the same time. Why don't I just make this a thing? And I did.
I was just thinking from what you just said as to how many people do play bass and sing at the same time. Most bass players at the one end just play the bass, maybe at the other end they are backup vocals to a singer, but I don't know of too many that play and sing at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, oddly enough, Paul McCartney, he's a bass player and sings, and he's doing some hard lines too. Close your eyes and I'll guess you do. He's like walking a jazz bass line. It's
Oh yeah,
insane.
he's amazing. I was thinking more of the stand-up bass guys than electric bass.
Yeah, I mean, what would come to mind is I guess Esperanza Spalding. She's doing that, and she's a big inspiration. There's this guy named Miles Mosley that plays around LA. And other than that,
Well, that's
yeah,
it. There's not a lot of them, so you're unique in that sense that you're one
yeah,
of a very few that do that. But you
right.
also have a sense of joy when you're on stage as well, don't you?
I like to do it. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's number one. Yeah.
I've talked to jazz musicians, and several of who enjoy being on stage. I've talked with others, or I've watched others that are into the music, but not necessarily into the joy of it. If I'm making sense, that they're performing technically on stage, and they're probably backing up a singer or part of a group, but they don't necessarily take a external joy in it. You don't see necessarily joy reflected in their faces or in their body language.
Right. Yeah. That's the hard part, is watching musicians that don't like to do it. It's like I want to see people that love to do what they do.
Right,
In
exactly.
any job, acting, finance. It doesn't matter if you love your job, then you'll love it, and even people who are waiters who come up to me and they're just, they're like, how are you doing today? You're like, they love their job. There's certain people that, it's insane that there's musicians out there that don't do that. And I don't know a lot of them. So that's the good part,
Yeah, absolutely. You're hanging out with the positive people.
Yeah, that's my rule is love what you do. So
I want to get back to Idyllwild for a second because a lot of people are not familiar with Idyllwild. I grew up knowing about Idyllwild, but now that I think about it, I've never been to Idyllwild. What is it about that community and about the school there that's so unique? And it's part of Southern California for a long time.
yeah, it's the fact that it's a small mountain town. You're away from light pollution, regular pollution, and sound pollution. It just clears the senses, and there's so many trees that you breathe in, so much oxygen. It's really healthy for you. And the water, you can drink it from the sink here. It's really nice, and it's perfect because it's a 2-hour drive from LA. So I remember we would, because I grew up here, I didn't really know about LA, but for one of our projects, the teachers drove us down to the El Rey Theater and watched Medeski, Martin, and Wood. These really great, this really great bass player, keyboard player, and drummer, and it was so cool. And we got to see that, and then we drove right back up the hill again. It was like, we got back at midnight, but it was so cool to, that's what I wanted my career to be, is to be a musician playing at the El Rey Theater, and you can go see that, and at the same time be in a community that is very artsy and far away from the busyness. You can just have this relaxation.
How do they finance that situation there? Meaning the Idyllwild Arts Academy and the surrounding community. What's the infrastructure like? How are they able to work it out where you have faculty and staff and students and be able to create this unique community for so many decades?
For the school, I mean, you pay a lot of money to go in there. That's basically it. And
Right.
then community, yeah, there's a lot of people that come up, and it's not even like a skiing community, but it's just a relaxation place. So I'm sure that there's there's a lot of people that sell firewood, and there's coffee shops and stuff like that. So that's basically it.
As long as your base doesn't turn into firewood, I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, well, worst case scenario, if you're freezing, you can either use it as firewood or a sled to get down to the, desert.
Exactly. Was it a cultural shock when you first went down to LA and to the El Rey? Was it in the sense that you're coming from a very small mountain town?
No, because my grandmother, she, my dad's side, she lived in Eagle Rock. And so we would go visit. So I kind of got it. And she lived next to a Winchell's Donut. And then across the street from there was a shopping mall. So I kind of got used to the LA vibe, and
Mhm.
I'd visit friends there even when I was, out of it. So no, I was used to it. I was used to the LA vibe.
You mentioned donuts, so I've got to bring up, I don't have to bring it up, but I asked you if I could, because I think it's important for people to be aware of health issues. And you
Yeah.
had been diagnosed with colitis, I guess in your freshman year
I
at,
Yeah, freshman year of
at
college.
college at University of Colorado, I believe.
Yeah, Boulder.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Yes. And so that's actually a big reason why I quit college. Because I was just having these horrible pains and pooping blood. That's basically what ulcerative colitis is. I mean, it's the colon just attacking itself because it could be stress, it could be bad food, and that's, I think I was very stressed out and eating really bad food then. So
Like donuts,
yeah, and
probably. Yeah.
exactly. And so I had a surgery to remove my colon, and since then, so technically I don't have ulcerative colitis again because I don't have those large intestines. So that's the good part. And ever since the surgery, it was in October of 2022. Ever since then, I decided to not drink or smoke, or I've just been sober, and it feels really good. And now this year, I've decided to not eat sugar as well, not eat sugar and not eat bread, because it's really not the best for you. I mean, also salads are not the best for me. I'll still eat vegetables, but I got to cook them pretty hardcore.
Yeah, it's roughage otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happens. I actually tried to be a vegan, 6 years ago, and I would just eat salads every day, and it was great because I got thin, but I was having my ulcerative colitis symptoms.
Yeah.
So I'm still figuring it out, but I now know. I mean, I just went crazy because it was Valentine's Day and my birthday. My birthday was on the 12th, so I had cake, I had all that stuff, but it's been good to figure out what's not good for me, and so now I'm just eating, trying to eat a lot healthier, just eat just some good meats and fruits and hot vegetables. So
Well, that's good. And the reason I wanted to talk with you about it is so that anybody watching or listening who may have some symptoms and not know what it is, that could possibly be that they'd have to check with a doctor to have it
right.
diagnosed properly, but at least there's a light at the end of the tunnel in your case. And and it's interesting, you mentioned about giving up sugar, and of course, sugar is responsible for a lot of things, but one of which is inflammation. So I would think that your choice to give up sugar makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and processed sugar, I should say,
Yeah,
because
processed sugar,
fruits
right.
fruits has that stuff. And
Right, right. And honey.
yeah, so yeah, it's a good, I think it's a good decision for for everyone. I mean, yeah, it's good. And like, I learned a lot about weight loss as well, which I'm trying to cut down as well again, because there was times where everything I would eat, it would come out just blood. So I stopped eating, and so I went from, I lost about 40 pounds
Hmm.
for those, in those that surgery time. And so again, I looked really good, but man, it was like so unhealthy. So
Yeah.
now the next step is to, I figured out, because I was just literally laying around at home and not eating. So that's what it is. I just got to eat less. Yeah, I'm exercising too. I just got back into exercising, and
Yeah, that does help. One last point about this, and then we'll move on. But
yeah,
when you travel to perform, that's tough too, because especially if you're flying, there's airline food or airport food, and sometimes you can get some good food in the airport, but not necessarily on the airline. But you're traveling, you're staying at different places in different venues in different cities. So you have to be even more careful about what you eat than if you were
yeah.
just at home preparing
There's a
to.
lot of healthy options. I mean, even at gas stations, there's bananas in there.
Yeah.
Actually, some of the time they're in the perfect condition, because they got those brown spots all over them. Those are my favorite, and I'd prefer those over like the really green ones. So
Yeah,
there's
well, it's
always going to be a
softer.
healthy option, and even sometimes there's nice sandwiches with meat in them at the airport, and you can get those. And beef jerky is not bad either, because that's just straight up meat, so
Mhm. Straight protein.
yeah.
I'm glad we had this little discussion within the larger framework so people can get a sense of what they can deal with if they find they have it. Well, when did you know that you really were starting to make an impact? Was it on Idol, or was it before, during, after?
Impact in what way?
Impact on people that they became more aware of you?
Oh, it's definitely idle.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it was, yeah, during Idyllwild Arts when I went there. I mean, even before then, I did a talent show, and people I didn't know were coming up to me and like, "Hey, good job at the talent show." So that was like, oh, this is a nice feeling. So that it started then, and then Idol obviously was incredible, because you would do a show and you'd feel really good, and then you'd be walking around the next day and they'd be like, "Hey, you're that guy." And so I was like, "Oh, nice." And they knew you by your name, it wasn't just some character.
Well, I think that there's three ways to be known. One is, as you mentioned, your local group in your local area. And then there's the music community or the musician community, and that could be nationwide or even global. And then there's the general public, which is even obviously more of an impact. And that would be, for example, your appearance on Idol, many appearances on Idol. So I guess you were starting to become known in these different circles and different stages, to where you're now a known, I'll use the term brand, even though it sounds impersonal, but you're a known brand, and that I think helps you in terms of your career, in terms of bookings and performances, etc.
Yeah, it does.
Do you like recording jazz?
I do, yes. In fact, I've recorded probably 3 jazz things in the last couple months. Um, yeah, and they'll come out. There's actually some. I really like the music of Zelda Ocarina of Time. It's a Nintendo 64 game, and so we just recorded it. And part of me was like, well, we can record this part first and this, but we all decided as a jazz band to just record all in the same room, and we
Old
just chose
school,
the
yeah.
best take. Yeah, and that's really the spirit of it. So that's
Nice.
it feels great.
Yeah, it's the way Sinatra did it with the orchestra right all in the in the studio.
That
You're
makes
right.
sense.
I mean, today with technology, you record part of it and across the world, another part of it, and then 2 weeks later, another part of it, put it all together. But it's
Right.
nice when you can collaborate like that. And for any of the information, go to CaseyBasey.com for all of his information on not only his albums, but his bios on there and a bunch of other information, upcoming appearances. And of course, he's going to be at VIX Las Vegas, as I mentioned, March 1st and 2nd at 7:30 and 8:45. When you travel, do you find that the venues vary as far as sound, audio, staging, etc.?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And I never try to take it personally if there's something weird, because at the end of the day, you can feel the music. There was this, they call it was a casino, but a racing one, a racino. I've never heard of it before, but we played and there was no monitors on stage, so they offered these earbuds, but I my ears are kind of small, so like they don't fit. And so I just did the whole show with just by kind of feeling the energy. Same thing at Postmodern Jukebox did that, a show in Vegas actually, and they offered in-ears, but it just felt better to just kind of feel what the audience was feeling. I was like a couple feet away from the actual audience, so it's like, why not just hear what they're hearing and see if I'm in tune? And I would listen back, and it sounded fine. So
Well, you could technically, I would assume, bring your own in-ear monitors, your own personal ones, and hook into the system as need
yeah,
be. And that could help too. Is this your first performance in Las Vegas other than through Postmodern as Casey, or have you been here before?
I've been here before. I've been to the Suncoast Casino. I've been in Henderson at this really great amphitheater. I've played a couple of other shows in some other casinos, but I guess this is like the first one that's like really on the it's on the strip, right?
No, it's actually downtown. It's right next to the Smith Center, the
Oh,
performance.
okay. And I've played at the Smith Center with Postmodern, but not as myself. So
Right.
I've done it before, but this is the first one after the surgery. So
No, that's great. It's
yeah,
it's your post-surgery performance. How about that?
exactly.
Post-operative performance, I guess would be a better way. Do you have any limitations based on after the surgery that you have to be careful about? I just want to go back to that for a second, other than
Just
diet, but I mean, do you have to kind of rest or make sure you get enough sleep
a lot
prior to
more water.
more water?
Yep,
Yeah.
more sleep and just be close to a bathroom a little bit more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
get you. Yeah, that makes sense. Well,
Mhm.
you've been very open about it, which is why I wanted to talk with you, so some people can hopefully benefit from your honesty on it.
Yeah.
And what do your parents think about your career as it is right now? Because obviously you mentioned about sitting with your mother watching American Idol, and then the next thing you know, you're on it, and what you've done since. So,
I think they like it. I mean, they came down and watched me at my sold out show in LA with my birthday show, and it was great. And they were very happy.
do you look to anyone besides Marshall in terms of for inspiration or for advice on how to progress in your career playing the bass?
No, no. I mean, I looked to Scott Bradley, who did Postmodern Jukebox, and the guys who do Scary Pockets, and yeah, I look at those guys because it's they've found really like a really good niche, to
Mhm.
figure out like how to tour with it. So
Do you see yourself going into the production side of things more, especially with recording albums? Do you like that part of it, or do you
yeah,
rather?
I'll do that. I'll tour, and I'm actually starting a talk show as well because I want to talk about people who've been on Idol or just people who have been on shows like that, and I think it's really important. So
When will that launch?
this year,
Oh,
this year,
good. Okay.
yeah,
And they'll be able to find it on your website when.
exactly, yeah.
Okay, great. will you have the time for it? Because I know that you perform, so you're traveling to some extent.
Yeah,
And your schedule really depends, like A, on bookings, but B, how you're feeling, and C, what else you're doing, because you're doing
exactly. Yeah.
stuff,
But
right?
I mean, that's even better because, a lot of my time should be resting and hanging out. So
Right.
what's the easiest thing is just to just hang out and just talk to my buddies about what's going on in life and what they went through. That's huge.
And did you ever end up at the El Rey Theater?
I did not by myself, but with Haley Reinhart, and
Okay.
I played with her there, and no, I haven't. I'd like to play there. To be honest, I'd like to maybe go to the Troubadour or the Roxy Theater. Those are some really good spots, and I'm aiming for that.
The reason I brought up El Rey, just because, again, as a going back and completing a circle, having visited there when you made the trip from Idyllwild, and then all
Mhm.
of a sudden you're playing.
Mhm.
There's that type of connection. At least I
Right,
saw it that way. Maybe I
right.
did. I don't know if you saw it that way, but it seemed like you're coming full circle again.
Well, it was full circle when I played with Haley and I did a couple songs with her. It was like, wow, I've been in this audience before. Like, what an
Right.
amazing thing.
Yeah. It's got to be. Before I let you go, Carnegie Hall.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, because again, if it's not a personal touchstone, it's certainly a American cultural touchstone. Everybody knows about Carnegie
Mhm.
Hall.
Oh, it was insane to play with some of the greatest people at Carnegie Hall, including Haley Reinhart and Branford Marsalis was there, Aaron Neville was there, Dee Dee Bridgewater, and it was all because of Irvin Mayfield. He's a really big trumpet player in New Orleans, and so it was a very New Orleans vibe. And I got to sing "Hit the Road Jack" with Haley. It was really cool, and play a bass, so it was super fun, and it was just so cool to say that I've played at Carnegie Hall.
Well, that's a great way to leave it. My guest has
Yeah.
been Casey Abrams, performing at VIX Las Vegas March 1st and 2nd at 7:30 and 8:45. For more information on the show, go to vixlasvegas.com. And for everything about Casey Abrams, go to caseybasie.com, and you can follow him on Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. And Casey, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for the talk. Good to hear you, man.
Same here. See you next
Yeah.
time.